Okay, this is 2022 Primary 6 Preliminary Examination for Tao Nan School for Paper 1. I will be selecting only certain questions to go through for today. Okay, now question 2. Express 0.375 as a percentage. Okay, so 0.375, if I change this to my fraction, is 375 over 1,000. Okay, how do I know it's over 1,000? Because there's 3 decimal places in this number. So you count your decimal places. There's 3 digits after your dot, after your decimal point, which means there will be over 1,000. Now, if you want to change this to percentage, I will multiply by 100%. Okay, so you can cancel off your zeros first. And then you're left with 375 over 10. Okay, so if you recall back, 375 over 10 is as good as your 375 divided by 10, which means that if you have 375, if you divide this by 10, okay, means I will have to move back my decimal point by 1 space to my left. So I get my 37.5. So you get 37.5%. Now, this is one way. Another way is I know that my 0.375, okay, I can straight away multiply this by my 100. So you realize that your 0.375, if I want to multiply by 100, I must move 2 spaces to my right because I'm multiplying. So 2 spaces to my right, shift your decimal point, you get 37.5% as well. So both ways are acceptable. Okay, your option is number 2. Okay, now question 3. Arrange these fractions in descending order. So descending order means you're going from big to small. Okay, from big to small. So I have these fractions, but how do you arrange them? Now, one thing you can take note of is you try to find the difference from your 1 whole. So example, if this is 11 over 12, I want to find my difference from my 1 whole. Let's say I take my 1 whole minus of my 11 over 12. Okay, my difference is 1 over 12. I'll do the same thing for the rest. So 1 whole minus my 5 over 6. I get 1 over 6. 1 whole minus my 3 over 4. You get 1 over 4. And then finally, your 1 whole minus my 7 over 9. You get your 2 over 9. Now, why do you compare the difference instead of looking at the fractions given? Because our fractions over here is a bit hard for you to compare. They have very different denominators and also very different numerators. Whereas if you look at the fractions in terms of the difference from your 1 whole, the numbers, the numerators are smaller. They are more consistent. Okay? So if I want the number to be very big, the fraction to be very big, means I'm looking at the difference to be very small. Okay, so the smaller the difference, oops. Okay, the smaller the difference, the bigger my fraction. The bigger my fraction. Okay, now this is 1 over 12, 1 over 6, 1 over 4, but the final one is 2 over 9. So if you want to compare, you must make sure there is something which should keep the same, either your denominator or your numerator. So what am I going to do? I'm going to change this, the numerators, to make it 2 instead of 1. Okay, so I will rewrite down my fractions again. 1 over 12, 1 over 6, 1 over 4, and 2 over 9. So I'm going to multiply all this by 2. Remember to also change the denominator. Okay, so I will get my first to be 2 over 24. This will be 2 over 12, 2 over 8, and finally 2 over 9. So once my numerators are the same, you compare your denominators. So of course, the bigger your denominator means the smaller your fraction. Okay, which means that this must be the biggest. So this is the smallest difference. Okay, smallest difference. So don't get confused. And then this will be my biggest difference. Okay, the 2 over 8. So the biggest fraction will be my 11 over 12. Okay, so the big to small. So 11 over 12 comes first. Okay, and then followed by, so the next one will be my 2 over 12, which means my fraction is the 5 over 6. Okay, and then followed by your 2 over 9, which is your 7 over 9. And finally, your 3 over 4. Okay, because 2 over 8 is the one with the biggest difference, which means that my fraction must be the smallest. So we are looking at option number 4 for question 3. Okay, good. Okay, question number 4 I will also go through is a recap of your time. So how many seconds are in 3/5 hour? Now 3/5 hour, let's find in terms of the minutes. 1 hour, there's 60 minutes. So I take 3 over 5. I multiply by 60 first to find in terms of minutes. Okay, so if you cancel off, 60 divided by 5 is 12. You get 36 minutes. But you want to find your seconds. So 1 minute is equals to your 60 seconds. If I want to find for 36 minutes, I need to multiply. So I take 36, I multiply by my 60 seconds. Okay, so you can actually do your 36 times by 6 first, and then add your 0 at the back. I get 2160 seconds. This is option number 3. Okay, now question 5. 340 times 2.2 equals to 340 times what number times by 22? What is the missing number in the box? Okay, this question also quite classic. It happens a few times and some students are not very sure how to solve this. Okay, so first thing is you have to compare your numbers on your left and your right. My left hand side, there's a 340 here. My right hand side, there's also a 340. So this part is already satisfied. Now this 2.2 must balance out with the number inside the box times 22. So I know that my 2.2 equals to the box times by my 22. So this number 2.2 is smaller, which means that this must be a decimal. So what do I multiply this? Now 22 must multiply by a decimal to get your 2.2. Correct? Or if you see it this way, okay, from 2.2, right? If I take 22 becomes 2.2, means you have to divide by a certain number. Okay, 2.2, you must divide by something to give me my 2.2. So you realize you must actually go back space. Let's say if I put this decimal point, you go back by 1 space, which means you have to divide by 10. Okay, but because this is multiplication, 22 divided by 10, okay, means that is as good as your 22 multiplied by your 0.1. Because 22 over 10 is the same as your 22 times by your 1/10 if you separate this out. And your 1/10 is the same as your 0.1. Okay, so it's answer option number 2. Okay, question 6, I will just keep this. I think it's quite straightforward. You only have to convert your cm, meters and cm. Okay, question number 7. 7 is actually quite straightforward as well, so I will just keep. Okay, question number 10, I will also skip. Now let's go to question 11. Matthew is thrice as old as his sister. In 5 years' time, their total age will be h years old. How old is his sister now? Okay, now, if you record the ratio for Matthew to sister, my ratio will be 3:1, which means that Matthew is 3 units, the sister is 1 unit. Now let's find their total age. 3 units plus 1 unit. You have 4 units for the Matthew and the sister right now. Now, if you want to find their total age in 5 years' time, I will take my 4u plus 5 years for Matthew and plus 5 years for the sister. So you get 4 units plus 10. So please be very careful when you want to find your total age. You have to remember to add 5 for each of them. So 4u plus 10 is your total age in 5 years' time, and it's the same as your h years old. Okay, so 4u plus 10 is equals to h. You want to find for 4 units, so I'm trying to find the sister. Sister currently is 1 unit. So I need to go and solve my equation. So bring over your 10 to the other side. Okay, so 4 is as good as mine, h minus 10. And finally, when you want to find for your 1 unit, you have to divide this expression by 4. So I get h minus 10 over 4. And that is the 1 unit I'm looking for. So my sister is now option number 2. Okay, h minus 10 over 4 years old. Okay, question 12, I will also skip. Now let's go to question 13. The average age of 3 dogs was 12 years old. The age of each dog was different. The youngest dog was 8 years old. Which one of the following was a possible age of the oldest dog? Okay, so let's find the total age of the 3 dogs. So 12, I times 3 first. I get 36. That's for the total age. Now, minus of the youngest dog. Okay, so I minus of 8. I get my 36 minus 8, you get 28. So 28 is the total age for the other 2 dogs. Okay, so let's look at the option. So if I look at the first option, 15. Okay, if I look at option number 1, if I take 28, I minus my 15. Okay, means that the other dog will, the other dog will be 13 years old. Okay, option number 2, 28 minus 14, you get a 14. Okay, so this one is not possible because you must make sure the age was different. Option number 3, if I take 28, I minus off 13, option number 3 is 13, I get a 15. Okay, so this one seems okay. And then finally, option number 4, 28, I minus off 12, I get a 16. Okay, 16 can be the oldest possible for this question, but there's no option for 16. Okay, there's no option given. So the next best will be 13 or 15. But of course, 13 and 15, 15 is the older age. So that's why my answer for this is option number 1. Okay, 15 years is the oldest possible for this question. Okay, question number 14. The ratio of the area of your rectangle A to the shaded area of your rectangle A is 7:2. So let's record your ratio. Now A to my A shaded. Okay, 7:2. The ratio of the area of your rectangle B to my unshaded area of my rectangle B is 5:2. So B to my unshaded B, so B unshaded, this is my 5:2. Okay, find the ratio of the unshaded area of my rectangle A to the area of the whole figure. So once you record your ratio, let's try to look for your common base. Now, any common bases over here, it's not very clear. I know that my A and B cannot be the common base. You have A shaded on your left side and your B unshaded on your right-hand side. But do you see there's a common region between these two rectangles, which is the shaded part? This is a common region. So I need to find out my B shaded because that will be my common base. Okay, so how do you find your B shaded? Minus of, so 5 minus 2 means my B shaded is a 3. So I know once that the shaded part is the common base, I find my lowest common multiple. So 2 and 3, the LCM will be 6. So multiply this side by 3. I get 21:6. My right-hand side, I multiply this by 2. I get my ratio 10:4:6. So that's the common base for this. Okay? But you want to find the ratio of your unshaded area of my rectangle A. So if I want to find the unshaded for A, okay, so unshaded for A, right? Means I must subtract off my 21 units minus off my 6 units. So my area unshaded area for A is 15 units. This is 15. Okay, maybe I erase off this part. This is 15 units. Your unshaded is 6U. And then let's try to find for this unshaded for B. Okay, so unshaded for B means I will take my unshaded B is given as 4 units. So total is my 15U plus my 6U and then plus my 4U, which is 25 units. So how do I find the ratio for unshaded? So my ratio will be 15:25. Simplify, get your 3:5. So it will be option number 3. Okay. Now, question 15 is on your bar graph. So the bar graph shows the reasons for people not using online food delivery platforms. So if you look at this bar, you have prefer to cook, prefer to buy food on the way from work, worry about food hygiene, do not like the food options, too expensive, and other reasons. So these are the reasons for people not using the online food platforms, food delivery platforms. Now, the percentage of people who preferred to buy food on the way home from work was twice the percentage of people who gave other reasons. Okay, means that this is 2 units. And then your other reasons is 1 unit. So find the percentage of people who gave other reasons. Now let's look at the percentages for the others. So prefer to cook. Okay, is between 40 and 50. This is 45%. Worry about food hygiene is 13%. Okay, how do I know this? Now let's look at the gaps. From 0 to 10, if I look at the spaces, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 spaces, which means that every one gap is +2. Okay, so for the one that is worried about the food hygiene, this is 12. but your number is between your 12 and 14. So I know that my worry about food hygiene is a 13. Okay, do not like food options. Now 2, 4, 6, 6 and 8. So in between will be a 7. Too expensive is 20. So these are the percentages for the other reasons. So what you can do now is I want to find the percentages for the rest. So 45 plus 13 plus 7 plus 20. You get 85%, which leaves us with the percentage for the other two parts, the prefer to buy food on the way from work and the other reasons. So I take my 100% minus of 85. I get 15%. So 15% here is for 3 units. Okay, 15%. So I want to find for 1 unit. I divide this by 3. I get 5%. So since I know that my other reasons is 1 unit, means that the percentage is a 5. So it's option number 3. Okay, that's the end for booklet A. Let's move on to booklet B for the same paper. So for question 16, I will just recap on how do you convert your mixed number to a decimal. Okay, so you are given 7 and 3/25. Now please remember, when you want to change a fraction to a decimal, you must check your denominator. Okay, so make sure denominator is either a 10, 100, or 1,000. It cannot be any other numbers. So 3/25, the closest to change this to is your 100. Correct, means something over 100. So I will need to multiply this by 4. Same goes for my numerator. So I get my 12 for my numerator. Then once I change to the denominator of 100, I convert this to my decimal. So 7 and 12 over 100. How do I know how many spaces to check the number of decimal places? Look at your denominator. 2 zeros here means that most likely these are 2 decimal places. So 7.12. Okay, so I will skip question 17. It's quite basic. Question 18, 19, 20 are also basic questions. Okay, let's move on to question number 22. Okay, the drawing of the square grid. So parallelogram PQRS is drawn on the square grid. So they draw this parallelogram using the line XY. Draw a triangle XYZ such that angle XYZ is a right angle and its area is half the area of the parallelogram PQRS. Measure angle ZXY. Okay, now how do I find out the area of the parallelogram? So if I look at this parallelogram, okay, if I want to find half of this, means I will cut this parallelogram into 2. Okay, you see I cut this into 2. So let's try to find the area of the top triangle. Okay, good. So how to find this triangle? Look at the base. The base count the sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The base has 6. The height is 2. Okay. So half of my PQRS is half times 6 times by 2, which gives me 6. Means that I know that my triangle XYZ must also give me a 6. So if I look at this line, my XY, there's already a 4 parts over here. This is a half times by 4. So I know that I must take half times by 4 times by something. I must also get a 6. Okay, so how do you find this? If I work this out, half times by 4 is a 2. So 2 times this give me a 6, which means that my height must be a 3. Okay, so means when I draw my triangle later, I must make sure the height is 3 of the lines. Now, angle XYZ is a right angle. Means it must form a very nice 90-degree corner over here. So I will go up by 3 spaces, 3 lines. Okay, do you see? So please draw your straight solid line, and then you connect this to this. So it's easier to draw on paper, but it's harder to show on the screen. I'm not very good at drawing lines on the screen. Okay, so should be better than this. My one looks very awful. So I want to find this angle XZY. Please label your Z. So angle XZY is this angle. Okay, should be an acute angle. My one looks a bit off. But if I use my protractor and measure, I get a 37 degrees. Okay. Please draw a solid line. Don't draw dotted lines. I'm drawing dotted lines to show the spaces, to show the lines on where to get my Z. Okay. So question 22. Now let's move on to question number 24. Okay, 24, interesting question. In the equation below, the ones digits of the two numbers are not shown, so they are hiding. The sum of the 2-digit numbers is 180. The difference between them is the greatest possible. So what are the two numbers? Okay, now recall back, if I look at the value of these two numbers, your 8 and your 9 falls under the tens place. Okay, this is your tens and this is your ones. This is your tens place, and then this is my ones place. So let's try to find out the value. So 8 tens and 9 tens means this is 80 plus something. This is 90 plus something. So I take my 180 minus off my 80 and my 90 first to find out the value for my ones place. Okay, so you will get a 10. 10 means that this is my value of the ones place, of the ones digits. Okay, means that these two digits, if I add together, it must give me a 10. So if I look at the combinations of 10, okay, of course, you will start from the highest or the greatest number. So I have a 9 and a 1, you have an 8 and a 2, you have a 7 and a 3, 6 and a 4, and then 5 and a 5. But if you want the greatest possible, means that the number, the one that is on the bigger side, in this case, this 9 something must be as big as possible. Okay. And then for the 80 side will be as small as possible. This one, as small as possible. Why you want to create this? Because you're trying to create a huge gap between them. You must bring the lower number down. You have to bring the higher number up for you to create a big gap between these two numbers. Okay? So if I look at the options, I will choose the first one, 9 and 1. Because 9 and 1 means that I can make my number very big. So I will put the bigger digit for my 9 and then the smaller digit for my 8. So I get an 81 and a 99. Okay, so that's the highest possible. Of course, you can check with the rest. Okay, but they will not give you the greatest possible. So answer for this question will be 81 and 99. Okay? Okay, let's go to the question number 26. Okay, question number 26 is another one. So Tom and Jerry took a 10-minute mathematics quiz. They started and ended the quiz at the same time. Tom answered 2 questions more than Jerry for every minute. Together, they answered 58 questions. So how many questions did Jerry answer? Okay, so this is a 10-minute math quiz. Now, they started and ended at the same time, but Tom answered 2 questions more than Jerry for every minute. So if 1 minute he answered 2 questions more, in 10 minutes, okay, how many more questions does John answer more than Jerry? I will take 2 times by 10 first. So I get 20 questions. Once I know this, I can draw my comparison model. So Tom and Jerry. Tom is 20 more than Jerry. Okay, my total is 58 questions. So I can minus off and then divide by 2 to find for Jerry. So 58 minus 20, I get 38 questions. And then 38, I divide by 2, I get 19. So that's the answer for question number 26. Jerry answered 19 questions. Okay, question 27, I will also skip. Okay, question number 28. Okay, I will go through 28 on your geometry. So triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle. Equilateral means that all sides are 60 degrees. Okay, ABE and ACD are straight lines, and then BD equals to BE. So you can draw in your lines. You can annotate your diagram. So find the ratio of angle X to angle Y to angle Z. So if this is my isosceles triangle, means that this angle here must also be 50 degrees. Okay, how do I know which side is the same 2 angles? You have to see your cone, your party hat. So if this is my party hat, you must make sure the angles at the bottom of the hat, the one going to the neck. Okay, so these 2 angles here is the same angles. So I can find for angle Y. Okay, I put angle X first. Angle X is 60 degrees because it's the angle of your equilateral. Now angle Y will be your 180 minus your 50 degrees minus of your 50 degrees. Angle Y will be 80 degrees. Okay, now angle Z is at this corner of your triangle, but since I know that my angle ACB here is a 60 degrees, I can find my angle Z by taking my 180 degrees minus of my 60 degrees. Because adjacent angles on a straight line is 180. So 180 minus 60, angle Z is 120 degrees. So how do I find my ratio? So 60 to 80 to my 120. And you simplify this. So you get 3 is to 4 is to 6. Divide each of these by 20. So that's the answer for question 28. Okay? Okay, last question, 29. I think the last question on 30, I will just skip. Okay, I'll look through the solutions. Okay, so for question 29, the area of A is 5 times the area of C. I record down A to C. So 5 is to 1. The area of B is 1/25 times the area of A. If you see your mixed number, do not panic. Change this to your improper fraction. So I get 7/5, which means that my area for B to A will be 7:5. So express the area of A as a fraction of the whole figure. So look for your common base. My common base is the same. It's 5 for each of this. So you don't have to change. Okay. Now how do you find your total? So total will be my A plus B plus C. So 5 plus 1 plus 7, which means my total is 13. So the area A as a fraction means it will be 5/13. Okay, so that's all for this week's prelim paper. Thank you for watching the video.